So this does work. And regarding the mobile specific challenges, I think the first one is really connected with what I mentioned before, with the longer release cycles and with the dependency on the particular app version to go live before you can start getting the insights and the numbers. So there are some solutions to that.
Hey, Ekaterina, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tracy. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, so happy to have you here. I know we've been kind of talking back and forth, trying to get on this call for a while, but I'm so glad you're here. I read your bio, and a lot of what you do is very relevant to a lot of the people in this community. So I know they're going to learn a lot from you. And yeah, it's great. It's great for you to be here.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I can share something valuable.
I know you will. But yeah, if you can let us know a bit about yourself, who is Ekaterina? What brought you to where you are today? Just give us the whole rundown, and we'd love to know more about you.
Yeah, I'm Ekaterina, and I've been working in growth and marketing for about 15 years by now. Will be a little anniversary soon. I started in search engine optimization and then moved to digital marketing, a little bit more all-encompassing field. And then from there, the mobile marketing was actually picking up at that time, and I wanted to see how this works as well. So about 7-8 years ago, I moved to mobile marketing, and then I was switching between digital and mobile here and there, but mostly sticking to mobile apps. And yes, during this time, I've been working across all the parts of the funnel. I was working for years in user acquisition, app store optimization, CRM, also being responsible for the creative production of advertising assets, and also did product management a bit. In recent years, I'm mostly leading the marketing and growth teams, but yeah, have worked on the whole funnel pretty much during my career.
That's great. It sounds like you went from specialist to generalist back to specialist again.
I still think currently I'm trying to be more of a generalist, but definitely still a lot of work that is happening hands-on. I would say I'm still fairly tactical, but specialist and horizontal growth too. In recent years, a bit of a vertical growth as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like now your focus is kind of in mobile app optimization and experimentation. Why did you decide to go in that direction?
Yeah, well, mobile at first was really attractive to me because I think the attribution was very, very straightforward and clear. And it was just fascinating how you could track everything very reliably and how you could look at the user behavior from acquisition to conversion to whatever renewal in so much detail. So this was the level of granularity that I did not see on the web back then in recent years. And overall, experimentation has been a super integral part of each of the roles that I've had in the past, because I would really split it into multiple buckets. You can experiment a lot on the acquisition side. You can experiment with every email and with every email journey that you're creating as well, because it's like a funnel of its own. And on top of this, you can additionally experiment in the product and with a bunch of features, screens in the app to try to improve the user behavior and to deliver more value. So experiments have just been there in every role.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never tested on an app before. So just the whole thought of going from web experimentation to mobile experimentation is just such a blank. It's like a blank page for me. I have no idea what to even expect with a mobile experiment. Is the process for experimentation any different? It sounds like attribution is way different, but what about the actual test design, the actual testing process? How does that differ between optimizing or experimenting on a website, for example?
I think that the process, which is like for me feels like a way more critical part to nail down and to get it right, like from the hypothesis generation to actually measuring the results, analyzing the results, and sharing those. I think this is, I would say, it's fairly similar to the web as well, to the web experiments. You still do a lot of research, user research. Then the setup itself will differ because different platforms, different tools, different SDKs. Like this is quite a change. Maybe on the actual releasing the experiment and like rolling it out, there is quite a change as well that should be mentioned, because if you have a native app, you tend to depend on your app developers to write the code and to implement a certain experiment. And not only this, like with web, you can deploy a lot of changes like fairly fast. If you have a bug as well, you catch it, you make a change, it goes to production. The new web version is live. With the apps, it's a little bit more complex than that, because not only the developers have to implement a certain experiment, then it also, the new app version has to get released. It has to go through the approval in the stores, and then the downloads, like users should start downloading this new app version where the experiment is live. So this naturally takes way longer. And if you work in like weekly or bi-weekly release cycles, then, and especially if you have a bug at some point, then you should always keep in mind that, okay, it might actually take another sprint to get rid of that and to find like actually release the experiment. I think this part is the one where it differs significantly. So it requires way more, like way better roadmap planning. And there are tools that can help you streamline this process these days, but not all of the experiments, and like only certain types of those. Yeah, I think this is the main difference probably.
Hi, this is Romo Santiago from Experimentation. If you'd like to connect with hundreds of experimenters from around the world, consider joining our Slack channel. You can find the link in the description. Now back to the episode.
Do you also experiment on the App Store pages as well?
Yeah, for sure. So this would be, like I would really split the experimentation into 3 buckets, more or less. Like the first one would be the advertising type of experiments. Like these are roughly the same on web and mobile. You test different channels, you test different creative concepts, different targeting, optimization setups. Of course, the channels and the types of campaigns are different, but the idea is the same. You want to drive users either to your store page or to the web as cheap as possible, as effectively as possible. Then the second bucket would be pretty much what you mentioned, which is store listing pages. This is everything like pre-download, or on the web, it would probably be similar to pre-sign-up experience, like when you also create different landing pages, redesign the homepage or lead magnets, and you drive users there to see how the actual page performs. So it's similar to the store listing optimization, where we optimize the visuals, experiment with like different copy, icons, feature graphics, etc. So this would be the pre-download, like pre-sign-up stage. And the last one would be, the experiments in the actual product.
Awesome. I didn't even consider ads. It was so silly because you would do that for a website as well, but I didn't see it as these 3 different distinct areas to optimize: the ad, the listing page, and the app itself. How much would you say you focus on kind of each part of those?
Yeah, the good thing is that you have typically different teams and people focusing on each of these parts simultaneously, because it's just critical to make sure that not only your product is retaining, converting, and users are getting value out of it. On top of this, you also need to make sure that you are at any given moment driving users to your product as effectively as possible, and ideally as cheap as possible. I mean, you need, of course, like quality users, so not cheap at all costs,
Yeah,
but
you
get you get what I mean. So I would say that this is usually happening simultaneously, and not every like person in the team, not every team will be focusing on this experimentation 100% of the time. There will always be the core like work that needs to be done as well. But at any given moment, you will have experiments running on both sides. Like you will have like maybe new advertising concepts tested. In parallel, you'll have a new advertising channel being tested, and at the same time, you might have a new I don't know, purchase screen in the app being tested as well.
I'm so curious about the types of experiments that get run on apps and also on the store listing page. I know that you mentioned images, creative. Like, what are some of those experiments that you're most proud of when it comes to the app experimentation itself and like listing pages?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so at the top of the funnel, I would say that it's mostly my team members that are currently experimenting with this, like on the advertising as well as app store optimization side, because I have the team members that focus specifically on this. And this is still super interesting to see the results that you don't always expect. Sometimes even the super minor changes can bring something interesting. Like there is one of the examples that I like sharing is when we changed the screenshots. We experiment with the screenshots quite a lot, and we at some point placed the names of the programming languages on one of them. So there is this concept of the first impression frame. These are the first like roughly 2.5 screenshots that you see, because these are the ones that most of the users get exposed to, and these are the ones that are the most important. So we placed the names of the programming languages that our app teaches on the second one, and it gave us a boost of like 50% in conversion to download, because the assumption back then was it will be still apart from on, like in addition to writing this in the title and description, we should also just stress this visually and make it easier for users to process like what the app is actually doing. And it worked. And at the same time, there were some experiments which also brought good results, but was completely unexpected. Like when we were for a very long time having super colorful backgrounds in the screenshots, because eye-catchy and real looking nice and fun. And at some point we decided to change it to a super dark background. I think it's called space blue. That's my designer keeps reminding me of that. So we changed it to that. And in addition, we also added some lines of code in the background, like very blurry. And it also worked really, really well. So the assumption, again, that we had was that programming is just more associated with the dark background. And that's why we, again, can add a bit to this visual recognition with like a little bit of coding lines running there, which performed much better than the colorful ones, even though if you would look at the education vertical overall, you would probably notice that they're going really after bright colors, and this works for them.
Yeah, maybe in the process of trying to be so eye-catching, everybody ends up looking the same. So then when you actually have like a bit of a more muted or minimal concept, it stands out. Do you think that there's maybe something to be said about that?
Yeah, for sure. This might be something there too, because this is the tricky part. You might have your initial hypothesis, right? And we might think, yeah, it probably worked out because of that. But there might be the hidden variables or the reasons why, like, it worked out for a completely different reason. But just because the results match what we have envisioned for this experiment, we just stick to this. But I think there is a lot to what you're saying. Yeah, there is a lot to what you're saying, because we do look at the competition and we see what kind of things they're experimenting with. At the same time, you can never be certain that each of us knows what we're doing. And it might be just a random experiment that is not going to work out. So copying like the competition blindly, just because the whole vertical looks this way, might be something to it, but doesn't have to be the winning case.
I'm actually curious then, because you did bring up research for listing pages specifically. How do you get qualitative data? Like, I assume you can't put heat maps on the page or run surveys on the listing page. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You cannot do that. I think the only, like, one of the best ways is to just talk to users, to show them potentially like your store listing page or some variations of it, and to dig a bit deeper into what resonates and what does not. It's a little bit of a leading kind of tactic and strategy, because it's not exactly how users really make a decision about downloading the app, right? So they can of course, talk about it, and they can provide various arguments for their decision. At the same time, it does not mean that in the wild, this is exactly how the user is going to think, and this is exactly what they're going to do. So in my experience, it's very tricky to get the qualitative insights for this level of testing, like at the very top of the funnel. That's why just regular A/B testing makes it much easier in terms of coming up. Like, we have the hypothesis, we just launch an A/B test, and we see which A, B, or C like test, and we see which version performs better. Okay. These are quantitative insights, but getting the real insights from users in terms of what do you like, don't like, or why would you download this app or not. Like this kind of research is a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and there is something to be said, I think, about doing research in the places where you can get high quality and comprehensive research, and then trying to adapt it to the places where you maybe can't do as rigorous research. I do think that there is value in that, and it sounds like that's kind of your approach when it comes to listing pages, for example. And you called out a couple challenges there too, and I'm curious, what are some challenges that are specific to mobile experimentation or mobile app experimentation that you don't necessarily see in web experimentation, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll answer the first one in terms of you can also, like, what I think works pretty good is, for example, testing different value propositions and testing different copy on the screenshots. And where you can get a lot of inspiration for this from is your paid advertising, because in paid advertising you have a lot of different concepts and like hooks and copy tested all the time. So very often what we do is, if we see an ad that is performing like really well, and we see that this copy, probably like this particular hook, resonates with the audience, then that's also something that you can move on to your screenshots and see if this is going to be the case, like for a wider audience as well, that gets exposed to your store listing. So yeah, there are ways of how you can borrow the insights from one like other bucket of experiments and try to apply it to the other one. So this does work. And regarding the like mobile specific challenges, I think like the first one is really connected with what I mentioned before, like with the longer release cycles and with the dependency like on the particular app version to go live before you can start getting the insights and the numbers. So there are some solutions to that because in recent years there are tools that can help you run experiments without necessarily waiting for the app version to be updated. They mostly cover the pricing and the purchase screen, like paywall experiments. But this is still a huge relief, like can be a huge relief for you because this way first of all, you save your developers time and your product designers time that do not necessarily need to work on these features. In addition, you can empower your marketing or growth team members to be able to be independent when it comes to launching this kind of experiments, analyzing them, again, without involving anyone else. So this basically helps you iterate much faster. So within a given time frame, you will probably not necessarily have that many more wins, but you will have way more learnings. And this is the key to success.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to learn from failure. So, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this really helps to speed up a lot of things, and this is critical for startups, like for small developers. Yeah, and another area which is kind of challenging, I would say, and which is for me slightly different from how it works on the web, is that a lot of things in the apps are way more interconnected. And like on the web, you might have a much clearer split between, like, this is what marketing does, this is then what the sales team does, and this is what the product team does, or like a mix of sales and product depending on how you're growing, and if you're like sales-led or product-led company. But still, typically there is this point which is maybe a lead and cost per lead, where the marketing realm kind of ends. And in the apps, I would say that marketing teams tend to be responsible for revenue, and there are so many variables that determine that, which means if somebody, like if one of the teams, like the core product team, makes a change like to the activation flow, and end of onboarding is where we show our paywall, we will probably see the impact on the trial opt-in rates. And if another team decides to maybe remove a feature or experiments with retention, and we see a drop in that, then we also can expect that we will probably see a higher subscriber churn at some point. So these things, I think, are way tighter connected on mobile, which leads to have to be really good at stakeholder management in order to, again, on any given day, be aware of what's happening in the product on multiple parts of the product. I would even say, like, what experiments are running here and there. Do these experiments in onboarding, can they impact us negatively? If so, like, how much? Are we aware of this? Have we accounted for this in our like paid advertising spend? And yeah, this is like a lot of juggling between like making sure that everything that's running, like, you're aware of that, so that there are no like surprises in the end. And sometimes it's also really hard if you're looking at some cohorts like several months after. It's also pretty hard to necessarily attribute like some changes in the bottom line metrics to a certain experiment, because it kind of creates a waterfall of subsequent changes and impacts. Any given experiment can impact like 2 to 3 core metrics. And that's why it's super critical for us. It's good that we work like asynchronously at Mimo. We document everything very thoroughly. So when pitching an experiment and before launching it, we always come up with primary and secondary success metrics that we expect to the experiment to move, and also trade-offs and guardrails. And then when we're analyzing the results, we also document this very thoroughly to see like how much it matches the expectations. And it's a lot about syncing and sharing as much context on the metrics moving as much as possible. We have the bi-weekly bulletins or like bi-weekly digests, so that every team knows what everybody's working on, like what every team is working on. We have shared roadmaps. We regularly sync like with the teams, with the PMs, to just be aware and have as much context as possible.
Yeah, and that's super important, because I'm pretty sure most, if not all, of the people listening to this have been burned by a miscommunication that ends up breaking an experiment or ends up completely shifting the results in a way that everybody's like, what happened here? Oh, it's because we didn't communicate. There was a release that went out. Or I see it in e-commerce with promotions. They always mess up a test result. So how do we get around that? Communication, stakeholder management. And it's a good thing we have people like you around to take care of all that and see all those moving pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not always working out perfectly, right? But I think it's important that just every team member is trying, is just sharing as much context as possible in advance. Because my like typical setups, like not in the current company, but the examples I've seen before, were like, that's like the trial opt-in has, I don't know, dropped in half, and this is because we are testing a new paywall, or the trial opt-in dropped by 30%, and this is because we removed like one of the tiny bullet points in the list of pro features that we are selling, because we didn't think that it matters, but but it actually does. Apparently it does, right?
Yeah, it's always interesting finding that out, or finding out kind of the reverse. This thing that we thought was really important is actually not important at all. I see that a lot in especially e-commerce.
Yeah, I see this like very often in lifecycle marketing. It's also because I'm experimenting a lot with that, and I love it. I love like lifecycle marketing. Really, it's like so many things you can optimize.
Yeah.
There are, first of all, like there are different like flows. There are different journeys. Within every journey, there's like the timing. Then there is the actual emails or push notifications. Then there is the copy, headline. Do I put an emoji there, or should I address a user by name, right? And it's like so easy to get super deep into it and to be running like, I don't know, 10, 15 experiments at a time. And what I recently started doing is to actually like run holdout tests to see if having this whole journey disabled, like having several of the messages disabled, make any difference. And surprisingly and sadly, sometimes like it just does not. And this does not mean that it does not work and that life cycle marketing doesn't work. It just means that clearly I'm not delivering as much value through it as I was hoping I was. And this means, okay, there's so much more work to be done here from the ground up, because obviously it could be working much better.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be said about that, because personally, we're bombarded by so many notifications all day, every day. But as the marketer or the experimenter creating those messages, we think it's so important. We think, oh, this is so valuable. But then we find out, oh, it's actually not. The visitor may actually just want less, but have that lesser be more valuable. So quality over quantity. It's like such a trade-off. I had a past in life cycle as well, and there was that question of, okay, so there's an email flow. Do we send more messages or do we send fewer but make sure they're value packed, and hopefully get answers to that. So I love this. Maybe I'm going to go specialize in mobile app optimization now. Who knows? But if someone did want to get started in specializing in mobile app optimization or experimentation, where would you recommend they go first to get started?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think anything's going to beat practice. What I see people doing, even if they're not experts on mobile, but they just take over like a side project, a new client that is mobile first, and they dig into it and they involve like maybe some external help, mentors, to advise them a bit, or like to help them, to guide them a little bit better. I don't think that before actually me switching to mobile marketing to begin with, I had zero experience with it. It was because the whole like vertical was just appearing back then, and it was very early days. But honestly, I'm not sure if there are like mobile first, mobile specific kind of experimentation resources that exist. I do believe you can, of course, like read the technical documentation for, I don't know, running experiments in certain tools or analyzing them. But this probably, like, this is super easy to catch up when you're already doing this as well. So honestly, I don't think I even have a good answer to this question.
No, it's good. That's all good, because a lot of us tend to just fall into experimentation by learning one thing and then just falling into it. So if mobile app experimentation is kind of the same thing, I think that's a good thing for getting people to explore it and not having too many barriers to get into it. Is there... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say like product-wise, for sure. I think you can always extrapolate like your experience with the web experiments, like with the web experimentation, into mobile. Yeah, I think with the product experimentation with different screens, flows, onboarding, activation, retention features, like this is where the experience can be extrapolated from web to mobile. So if you have experimented with things on the product side, I think there is not that much different apart from the tech stack that you will find in mobile. It's similar with advertising, right? Like advertising bucket. Probably the only part that is different is web experiments that you run like on the landing pages on the website, homepage, etc., versus store listing experimentation. So this part is slightly different, but also I believe that the tools that we have these days for mobile, like the stores themselves, this is super straightforward and fairly easy to pick up as well.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for kind of giving a different look at a part of experimentation that at least I have never seen before or experienced, and I'm sure many of the people listening also kind of feel the same way. Is there is there anything going on in your world right now that you want our listeners to know about?
Not much going on, but I would say that I really like figuring things out, and if anyone has an issue, challenge, problem that they're trying to solve, especially with mobile, and don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be active there, and just share it, and I'll try to help. So I'll be happy to connect and help you figure things out.
Great. We'll put your LinkedIn handle inside the show notes for this episode. But thank you so much, Ekaterina. Like, this has been a very insightful chat, and I'm really glad you were on. And thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hi, this is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. If you'd like to connect with hundreds of experimenters from around the world, consider joining our Slack channel. You can find the link in the description. Now back to the episode.